One of the major purposes of the Jummah Khutbah is to give us a reminder. A reminder means to bring to our attention and to wake us up and to make us realize that, we've forgotten something. We have forgotten something. And what we have forgotten is something that is very remote, that is very secret, that is invisible. No wonder, it is easy to forget. Moral values, spiritual ideals, social rights and human rights are things that aren't tangible, or at least for the gross and insensitive worldly human beings. Of course, they are not to be grasped that easily. You have to be sensitive. You have to be fully awake, attentive. Before a surgeon can actually go into an operating theater, his colleagues have to make sure that he's okay, he's not drunk, and he's fully attentive, and he's had a good night's sleep, okay? Seriously, I'm sure there must be some ways of measuring the alertness of the surgeon, okay? Otherwise, it's a matter of life and death. But with deen and with our lives, my dear brothers and sisters, most of the time we're on what is known as the autopilot. You know what autopilot is? You just do things mechanically. You don't have to think about pressing your clutch, do you? When you want to change your gear, do you have to think about it? No, you're in that is called autopilot. And that's a power that Allah has given our brains to carry out things. Okay, we can do multitasking like that, no? But, when it comes to the deen of Allah, when it comes to knowing, when it comes to the dhikr of Allah, the remembrance of Allah, and carrying out those amazing, beautiful things which are known as husna, you can't do them on autopilot. Okay, you can't do that on autopilot. You have to be attentive. You have to be aware. And in fact, in dunya, in worldly affairs as well, the most successful people are only those who are actually alert and focused. I've had the privilege of working with people from Oxford University, from Cambridge University, some of the top people in civil service. And one thing I noticed again and again was, these guys and these lasses are absolutely focused. What was it? Focused. Whatever task they had in front of them, they were focused on it. They knew what they were doing, what's the purpose of it, what's the procedure, what's the policies about it, what are they trying to get out of it. They knew, they were in the moment. They were in the moment. Do you understand? Well, taqwa is that focusing. Taqwa is that alertness, awareness. Hey, I'm not stretching the meanings, I'll tell you, all right? This is the reality of it. Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, kutiba alaykumus siyam. We prescribed fasting for you as we prescribed it for the people before you. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So you become muttaqi, you become people of fear of Allah, pious, conscious, awake, alert, attentive. Ya Allah, how is fasting making you attentive? Alert? How is it making you aware? How is it making you fear Allah? Is there any way? Of course it is. Yes, of course. I had a visitor this morning, a non-Muslim visitor, at my home, and obviously I offered him things to eat because it's normal, as any guest you offer them, and there was no other Muslim watching me, okay? I could have had a bite and I could have had a drink of that exotic drink, couldn't I? But why? And I'm thirsty as well and hungry. Why? There was something in my mind. I was attentive. I was aware. That is, my dear brothers, that awareness My Lord has said, you can't eat. Ya Allah, this is halal. This exotic guava drink and mango drink is halal, absolutely halal, Ya Allah. Why? But no, you can't. Do you see, this is the attentiveness. So when we talk about taqwa, taqwa is about being aware and attentive. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we prescribed fasting for you so you become this attentive, focused person. Subhanallah. It's an amazing gift. I hope now this is telling us something, that the nature of Islamic worships and Islamic orders and instructions are what? Is actually to develop you. They are training exercises. It is a training boot, okay? It is a training camp. This 30 days is a training so that we become people of God. We become God conscious. We become fearful of Allah. We recognize our responsibilities. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam urged us to be muttaqi. Why? For example, one of his prayers used to be, Allahumma inni as'aluka al-huda wat-tuqa wal-afaf wal-ghina. Ya Allah, I ask you to give me what? Taqwa. Make me this person who is aware, attentive, awake. Why? Ya Allah, why do you want to be attentive and conscious and alert? Well, because, we are actually in a minefield. Where are we?
Minefield.
What happens in a minefield? Well, minefield will have lots of mines, and you take one wrong step, Colonel Saab, what will happen to you? It'll be end of you, In a minefield, you have to really move carefully, or not move at all. Stand still. Do you understand what I mean by minefield? Subhanallah, life is full of minefields. The Shaytan has littered this whole place with mines of all kind. Then your own nafs, your ego, your nafs ammara has also created a network of evil around you. And then of course the society has done the same. So have other people done. There are so many minds all around us. And if you are not conscious, if you are not aware, if you are not attentive, what will happen? You'll blow your legs off, or your limbs off, or your life even. You can lose your iman. Are you with me? I hope you can understand what taqwa is, no? Taqwa is such a valuable, precious thing that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asks Allah, I ask you for taqwa, ya Allah, no? Wal afaf. Another very important afaf is chastity, purity. Pure, pakona. What is it? Yes, this society is now riddled with impurity of particularly, all kinds of impurities. Sexual impurities, the key number one for a lot of young people, is a problem. Of course, economic impurity of the highest order. Frauds and the way the whole economy works actually. And we have to be very, very conscious. Today we actually don't care about it, sadly. Anything that comes, we just take it. But again, there are these impurities, ifaf. But ifaf here is more to do with sexual purity, which is so crucial. And this is one of the beauties of Ramzanul Kareem. Fasting, when Rasulullah ﷺ was talking to some young men, he said to them, Ya ma'ashar al-shabab, فَلْيَتَزَوَّجْ. You should get married. And some of them complain, we haven't got the means. And what did he say to them? He said to them, then فَلْيَسُمْ. Fast. فَإِنَّهُ جُنَّةٌ. It is a shield for you, a protective shield for you. What is fast for you? It is a protective shield. It will protect and defend you from these things. And so we need to really acquire, and this month, inshallah Aziz, this is the month of taqwa. As Allah says, the whole purpose of fasting and everything related to fasting and the night vigil in Taraweeh is all about making sure that you become God-fearing people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam often, talked about how we need to acquire this amazing quality. For example, here is one of the Abi Umama Sudayya قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يخطب في حجة الوداع فقال اتقوا الله وصلوا خمسكم وصوموا شهركم وأدوا زكاة أموالكم وأطيعوا أمراءكم تدخلوا جنة ربكم. Beautiful hadith. This is the final farewell Hajj of the Prophet, where he's saying to that massive gathering of possibly 14,000 great lovers of Rasulullah, or 124,000 lovers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaba, he says to them, ittaqullah, be mindful of Allah, be mindful of Allah, conscious of Allah, fearful of Allah, attentive, aware of Allah. I use all these different terms. Mindful is a very good term. It's a very modern jargon. Even our wonderful NHS uses mindfulness as a powerful technique of getting out of the problems of mental health. You know, if you go on mindfulness in NHS, it has a very good article there. You should read that, and you'll see similarities between that mindfulness and taqwa. Okay, what it really means is you live in the moment. You're aware of your situation. Okay. And this is what goes wrong when people are depressed or stressed. They actually lose this sense, where am I? Where am I? Who's around me? What's the problem? You know, they become forgetful of the reality. They're out of touch with it. But Islam wants us to be always, you know, what does Allah say? Ittaqullah haqqa tuqatihi. As is the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All the time you should be aware of Him. وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. You shouldn't die except in this state of utter submission to Allah. You know, submission, commitment, dedication, and giving up to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what you should be doing. But here Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is addressing the Sahaba, 124,000 of them in the farewell Hajj, and he says to them, ittaqullah, you know, be fearful of Allah, the first thing. And then he expands this as though he's expanding this by saying, well, the way you become muttaqi is this: you pray regularly, okay? You give zakat, you do the Hajj, he says, okay? And he says one more thing. He says, وَأَطِيعُوا أُمَرَاءَكُمْ. You know, obey your rulers. Obey your rulers. Yeah, that's really interesting. Muslims are supposed to be people who follow law. You know, people of law, no? However, that doesn't mean, you know, we become the subservient and blind followers of the establishment. All right, we obey the ruler, but we don't become blind followers of the establishment. And this is, of course, what democracy is also about. Democracy gives you the right to speak your mind. Although in the last few decades here, it's been under threat. Now with this new weirdo across the pond, it's, you know, people are challenging that idea, that whole notion of, should we be accepting every kind of nonsense and submitting to it? You know, whether it is LGBT or whether it is this, should we be accepting all that? And don't we have the right to speak out against what we believe is wrong? Don't we have that right? Of course we have that right, yeah, no? You have full right, okay, to speak and what your beliefs are. So if my deen says this is wrong, then that is what I will say. Are you with me? I don't know what trouble I will get into, but we'll sort that out later on, Umar, eh? but we need to, so, you know, this idea of, yes, we must be law-abiding, but that doesn't mean we become people of establishment and we don't challenge the wrongs. We must challenge the wrongs that we see in our society. Finally, you know, I'm going to end with this beautiful hadith which many of the sermon givers and khutbah use it in their sermons, which is Abu Zar says, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, usika bitaqwallah. Usika bitaqwallah. I order you, I tell you to be people of taqwa. I order you to live in the divine presence all the time. Fearful, conscious, aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time. بِتَقْوَ اللَّهِ فِي سِرِّ أَمْرِكَ وَعَلَانِيَّتِهِ. Outwardly and inwardly, openly and secretly, in every situation, be what? Muttaqi. Everybody pray, make this dua. Okay, I will follow the command of my Rasul and I will acquire taqwa. Just say that to yourself, inshallah. In every situation, we should be people who are aware and conscious of Allah. One of the beauties of Ramadan, of fasting is, as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the gates of heaven are wide open. What that means is, it's easy for you to do good things if you want to now. Isn't it? Yeah. And then it says, "Ughliqa abwab al-jahannam." The gates of heaven, hell are closed, and something else there. No? He says, "Suffidat ash-shayatinu." The evil devils are also chained, meaning now, to a great extent, you are truly free. This is a month of freedom. This is a month of freedom. You are free, inshallah. I hope so. You don't have to worry about your food, okay? The snacks, this, that. You can actually focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And let us take, advantage of that. I still don't see many people who come for Taraweeh, for example. Perhaps less than half of you come here for Taraweeh. I hope, you will do tawbah of the ones you've missed. And from today, you will come for Taraweeh at least. Or if you can't come for Taraweeh because you have to do 10 hours work shift, all right. You can do Taraweeh at home, but come and do iftari with us, and gain that, mashallah, swab of eating together. This month is month of, being together as well, which is a very powerful antidote to a lot of our mental problems, inshallah wal aziz. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us people of taqwa. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu taqullaha haqqa tuqatihi wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Qur'anil azim. ونفعنا وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم إنه تعالى جواد كريم ملك بر رؤوف رحيم.